because it wasn't necessarily like good, but it wasn't necessarily bad.
But this is the thing, Jake, right? There's a lot of angles we can go with this story. It's actually this is a topic that we could discuss a little bit because
Mm.
isn't it interesting how you like pre the climax of the evening were in one state. You were in a primal, like, this is going to make it sound very weird and animalistic, but I'm thinking from like an evolutionary perspective. Your brain is wired to do do one thing basically, and you're like enjoying the chase, you're enjoying the flirtation in this situation. This is a new person, like you're engaged on like a physiological level because you would be. That's what your biology is wired to do. And then after you've got what your biology wanted, then rational Jacob comes in, the guy that I'm speaking to now, the guy that hasn't been hijacked by his primal conditioning. And then you reflect and go like, did I actually want to do that? But isn't it interesting that there are two different eyes? There's the eye that was chasing and the eye that chased and got its reward and is reflecting on it afterwards. And like, they're both you, but they're also not. And like, you get that in life with any experience or event that is highly anticipated. Like we're driven to do a thing, achieve a thing, get with someone, like get a certain material good, achieve a certain level of status, and then afterwards, like we're like, oh, well, life does just carry on, and we're constantly like chasing those carrots in it all the time. And like maybe you just got a taste of the carrot and realized it was just a vegetable, and like it's better with hummus. Do you know what I mean?
A thought that I had was like, okay, I'll feel like this, but then like, what if she was a lot prettier? Would I still feel like this?
Mm.
But then that's like, then you're like, okay, I'd be more inclined to do it again. But then is that just like, is that just lust, or is that like meeting her again? The whole of experiences. It was a really confusing one. I didn't know what to do after that.
Mm.
Uh,
So you were just lying there staring at her ceiling in the
I
dark,
was there at
bro.
like 3 a.m. just like, yeah, thinking to myself.
But this is good because you're going and having experiences in the world, and like you've got the depth of self-awareness to actually like learn shit from it. I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of people would just pursue something, get it, then don't feel like great afterwards, but they don't like think, oh,
they don't know why.
they don't literally take a moment to just go, why don't I feel good right now? Surely I should feel good, or like, why do I not feel good, or do I want to repeat this again? Like that level of self-reflection isn't there for a lot of people. She was clearly a nice person. You had a nice evening. You know, what I mean, you watched the sunset, the stars came out, and you had a good time, right? You satisfied some primal urges and gave each other a big spike of serotonin. And maybe that's all that there needs to be, and maybe that's okay. You know what I mean? As long as she's not like deeply connected to you and you're kind of off now, like as long as you both understood that this was probably what the situation was going to be. But it's interesting, isn't it? Like, is it morally okay? And then I think everyone has their own line for that, depending on just how you view things.
So hard to get away from it. Like everywhere is going on
Yeah.
in my street next door.
Yeah.
I had it for. It's like everywhere.
Yeah,
Like,
because we are prime. Like, we are basically chimpanzees. We're self-awareness, bruv. If you think about it this way, like if we were in the rainforest and we were a tribe of chimpanzees, and you ended up going and watching the sunset with a female chimpanzee, bruv, the likely thing is, because of your hormonal and neurochemical drives, you would just end up fucking, and that's how it works. But because we live in human society, we wear clothes and we read sacred books, and like we work jobs and have an economy and have society and government and politics and all that kind of bollocks. We think we're extracted from the natural world, but are we really? You know, just because we have things like contraception, like the contraceptive pill and condoms and shit, like we can do that kind of stuff. But imagine if that didn't exist. Like you are in a way, there's I feel like there's a part of every man that has a little streak of Genghis Khan in them, right? There's just like, you had that drive of just like, right, I am going to procreate, or I'm going to spread my seed. And that's because that's what your genes do. So it's like, why do we now have this big frontal lobe in our head that makes us question, oh, is that okay? It's so because a chimp doesn't fuck a random female and go, I wonder if that was morally right, because I feel a bit empty now. Like that doesn't happen. So it's one of the weird parts of being a human.
But I think a big factor though is this kind of social proof and like the ideology of that is rebellious and that is cool. Like if that wasn't there, would we still feel the same?
Yeah. I mean, how many people do you think have like pretty disastrous, tragic sexual encounters just because they're scared of people thinking they're a virgin? Do you know what I mean? Like how many people's first time, and not because they actually like that person, it's because they're driven by these drives, and also they're like, oh, let's just get this over with so I can say that I'm not a virgin anymore. Like I think it is a weird social phenomena of teenagehood that you're not really taught how to handle.
Women don't want a guy that has no bodies, but they don't want a guy that's had loads of bodies.
Mm.
They kind of want a bit more experience, whereas a boy doesn't want a girl with many bodies.
But is it less about how many and more about the energy you give off? Because it's the energy of like fear of like, oh, I've never done this before, I don't know what I'm doing. Like that's what's icky, isn't it, really? And from the guy thing, I mean, I don't know, it's like a purity, like weird evolutionary thing, whereas like if she's been sleeping around, then the kids she has might not be my kids. Like that's the whole thing that I read about in that book. But I think it's more about just like, I think if you're a sick guy, they're not going to know, are they? Like you give off energy of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the only good, like, actual valid argument, but it's not even fully valid, but about porn being good, it's just that it sort of gives you a demonstration of what to do. But it's exaggerated.
Mm.
So you can only get a certain way. There are people that think porn's good.